Welcome to the Spunky Spirit Podcast. I'm your host, psychic medium Carrie Muggs. This is where we learn all things spirit, everything from spiritual gifts, awakenings, ghosts, aliens, and starseeds. Nothing is untouchable, but always fun and spunky. I am honored to be on this spiritual journey with you, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Hello, and welcome to the Spunky Spirit Podcast. I am Carrie Muggs, and I am a psychic medium, and I try and help you guys go on this journey together. We're all on this journey together, on this spiritual awakening journey, and it's my honor. It's my honor to help you guys get through this and kind of know some of the things that are happening. That's why this episode's kind of so important. It's kind of the hardest episode, I think, just because it's hard, and you'll know why. This episode is about discerning between your intuition and whether or not it's intuition versus your imagination or your anxiety. You know, if the things that you hear, your anxiety. And this takes practice. This isn't something that happens overnight. This isn't, I always say, trust your gut feeling. I always trust your gut feeling. And I believe that full-heartedly. And I always believe that, you know your intuition. But sometimes your intuition can just be anxiety. It can't be, your intuition can't be anxiety. But we can get anxiety confused with intuition. So a lot of times I think, imagination, it used to be imagination versus intuition, but it's been a day of anxiety. It's been the day of anxiety, because of social media and because of things, that are in the here now cause people anxiety. It causes, I don't know about you, but in my own opinion or in my own experience, I've experienced a lot more people with anxiety. Anxiety is really, I don't know if it was just hush-hush when I was younger and people just didn't know what it was, but now it seems like anxiety is everywhere. And it could be because a lot of people are self-healing. It could be a lot of people are going on a spiritual journey. And so we're forced to kind of process that. And that causes anxiety. I did experience anxiety when I was little. I remember having ulcers in kindergarten and my stomach hurting really, really bad and always getting quite sick and my mom having to come pick me up for school. Now I look back and I think it was anxiety. Back then it was just considered ulcers or something I ate but I also think that a lot of the anxiety came from my gift, from, feeling spirit or other people's feelings around me. So it's all kind of intertwined and hard to decipher and hard to know which is which is totally understandable. I do follow other mediums because I like to get their opinions and things about stuff. But there was a girl that was talking on there and someone was like, just follow your gut. And one of the mediums was like, that's awesome advice. And usually you do follow your gut. I've always tell people follow your gut. But when it is sometimes anxiety, you can't really read your gut or your intuition. If you're so full of anxiety, you bypass your intuition. And that's why this is so important, because it's usually intuition versus imagination. And imagination is so different than anxiety. Now it's kind of intuition versus anxiety. And let me give you kind of an example. So when I was going through my divorce, my first husband, we're fine now. Everything's fine. So I'm not putting any bad vibes out there. It just, divorces are hard. Relationships are hard. And anyways, I was thinking that there was some stuff going on behind the scenes in our relationship. And so anxiety would be when he wouldn't come home, and I would sit and think, okay, am I good enough? Am I pretty enough? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? How do I keep him? Is he with somebody else? What do I, that's anxiety. So he's not coming home and I'm stressing out thinking, is he cheating on me? What is going on? Why am I not good enough? And then intuition is one morning, I had concerns and I did have anxiety about the relationship. But one morning I woke up at 6 a.m. and there was no emotion, no worry, no stress. No, I just really honestly just woke up and thought, put a tape recorder under the bed today. And so I went to Walmart at 6 a.m. I put a tape recorder under the bed. It was one of those, back in the day when those little tapes, and luckily it had like 6 hours on it. He had been home. He had gotten a laser eye surgery that day. So he had been home. And I left the house and I got all the information on that tape recorder that I needed. And so what I'm trying to explain, though, is not to throw anybody under the bus. When it was anxiety or my imagination, it was when I was creating these stories. Is he cheating on me? Is he doing this? Is he out with a girl? What does she look like? Why am I not good enough? It was when I had anxiety and I was creating these things that weren't, my imagination was getting the best of me. When I woke up that morning and Spirit had confirmed to me to buy a tape recorder, there was no emotion to that. There was no, oh my gosh, am I good enough? Now there was fear. I'm not going to lie. Putting that tape recorder under the bed and wondering if he was going to find it. There was fear behind that. But when I had the first initial thought, there was no anxiety. There was no emotion. It was just plain and simple, do it. So that's how you can kind of tell sometimes if you are like having this, you feel like it's a gut feeling that you need to check on your daughter. Oh, I need to check on my daughter because it's been something you've been worrying about and stressing about for days and days and days. And you've been creating these stories in your head. What if she's doing this? What if she's doing this? What if she's doing this? Then that might be anxiety. That might be something that you are creating. You're creating these stories that might not even be true. But if she says something to you and you just have this feeling all of a sudden that, okay, that's not right. Or if you're sitting there and all of a sudden you feel, okay, something's not right, then that is intuition. Now still, and mother's intuition is the strongest intuition, by the way, from my experience anyways. Still, it's hard. It's so hard. And that's why not a lot, but a couple mediums that are coming out on TikTok will say, practice your intuition. Now, me, it's always been kind of easy to know what my gut feeling is and what my intuition is, usually, except for when I was in the middle of the divorce, because the divorce had so many emotions and so much anxiety that I didn't have very good discernment. But in the past and in other times when I'm doing something and all of a sudden something hits me and I'm like, okay, that's not right. Or a voice says that's not right. I usually can pick up on that. And even in the divorce I could. It's just I was too close to it and I just was too close to it and my emotions were too heavy. And so I couldn't think through it, or I couldn't tell between anxiety and intuition. So that's just kind of there's no easy peasy lemon squeezy way out of this. You just got to practice. And still, even to this day, even people who have practiced forever and ever and are mediums still will struggle with this just because it's hard. Anxiety can control and anxiety can win. So you kind of got to not let it. And there's a big misconception out there when people talk about mediums or see mediums or watch mediums that the mediums actually see the spirits in front of them. That's not always the case. Very, very rarely will the medium see the spirit right in front of them because the spirit has to lower their frequency and the medium has to raise theirs. So it's very seldom that the spirit will show up fully aspirated or whatever that's called. I, my whole life, have had this gift. And when I was little, I would see the spirits more often now I don't see them as much, especially during readings. When I do readings, I feel on the side that they're coming in through, and I can hear on a certain side that they're coming in through. And so that's usually my right side. And I can either feel them come through, I can sense that their spirit's there. Sometimes I can see white lights or little like orbs of them. And sometimes I can just hear them. And sometimes I can see them, not just with my mind's eye. Like I can picture in my head what they look like. Now, do they stand right in front of me and look like humans? No. And I don't think any medium does. And if they do, I don't know if that's 100% from the mediums that I've followed or I've, had experience with. None of them have that. None of them have the spirits just show up in front of them and say, hey, my name is George and I was born in 1950. It's all working through your clairs. They all talk through your clairs. Now, here's the thing. If that's how they show through, right? If that's how they come through, and I feel them and I sense them and I hear them and I know things, that's my strongest clair is claircognizance. I just know things. When I was younger, it was clairvoyance. I could see things, but when I got older, I drank a lot to try and get rid of that because alcohol will numb it. And all that did was just bring in lower frequencies. I could still see and hear sometimes, but it would just bring in lower frequencies. So the trick is for mediums is knowing what is in your head and what is the spirit actually talking to you about. Now, I've been doing this long enough that most of the time I know what I can tell the difference, especially during readings. Once I'm once I'm doing the reading and I'm sitting in the power, or sitting in the spirit, I know exactly what's what. I know what's mine and what's theirs. But there are times that I see things in the readings that I get too nervous to say. There was one, and I'm not going to tell you any names, but there was a client of mine that came through, and there was a child that had passed, and I kept seeing a dinosaur, and I thought, oh, that's so stupid. She's not going to know what that is. And I kept ignoring it and kept ignoring it. And I would just go into other things that the spirit was telling me. And at the end, she said, can I ask one question? I'm like, yes, you can ask any questions. She said, was he the one that put the dinosaur where I found it? And at that point, I was like, that's when you've got to trust your intuition. But trusting your intuition, doing this work for 5, 10, 15 years, compared to trusting your intuition at the very beginning is a lot different. You really have to work at it. It's something you have to practice every day. And so that's what you need to do. If you want to figure out what is intuition compared to what is your anxiety or what is your imagination, then you need to figure out what's what. So to do that, journaling is good, but journaling, automatic writing and seeing what comes in. I did have a friend who was like, when I first automatic journaled, I didn't know what was mine or if this really was working or if this was really spirit talking. And she said, the more I got into it, the more I realized what were my thoughts and what were actually spirits. So automatic writing is good to do that. Also, too, a good way to practice is just to meditation's awesome because that teaches you to sit in the power. That teaches you, so you might not have like extremely awesome experiences every single time you meditate, and that's okay. But what it does teach you is to be in the now, because when you're in the now, that's when you can kind of discern whether it's imagination or anxiety. Because when you're living in the now, you're not as anxious, because anxiety is being worried about what's going to happen in the future. Or what's happened in the past and dwelling on what's happened in the past and how it's going to affect you in the future. So when you're living in the now and there's no anxiety, and then you can feel the intuition. I hope that makes sense. It is the hardest. It is really the hardest thing to do, is discern between your imagination and anxiety compared to your intuition. And also too, to practice, I'm trying to think of other things that you can do to practice. You can, do readings on other people, and I don't want you to connect to other people without their permission. I don't want you to go to the store and try and read people while you're at the store, because you need to keep that's invasion of their privacy. So, ask a friend. I know you might know stuff about them already, but do practice readings on them, or just kind of also too, when I was doing my class, when I was figuring out how to communicate with the spirits, because when you're a medium, you can see the spirits but sometimes it takes a lot of training to learn how to communicate with them. So when I was in my training on how to communicate with the spirits, one of the exercises was to write a story. Use your imagination to write a story, because then you get to realize, okay, this is my imagination, and you kind of get to discern, this is mine and this is not mine. So when you're automatic writing, that's not supposed to be yours. So at first it might be. At first, when you're automatic writing, it might be a lot of your own stuff. But the more you do it, the more meditative state you'll be in, and the more it will become spirit's guidance, or your spirit guide's guidance, or ancestors' guidance. So automatic writing is good that way. Now, if you do automatic writing just 2 or 3 times, it's not going to work. You got to do it like at least 2 or 3 times a week. And then you can start to discern, okay, this is mine and this is spirit's. Also, writing stories, using your imagination to write fictional, imaginative stories. Then you can kind of tell what's yours and what somebody else's. And sometimes when you're writing these stories, you can feel the help you're getting. So you'll know what's yours, and you can feel when spirit comes in and adds to the story. So obviously writing, I guess, is a great way to figure out what is yours and what is spirits coming through, and your guides and your guidance. Prayer and meditation. Prayer is yours. Prayer, you're always asking guides or God to guide you, to be with you, to send love to people. Meditation is when you listen for them to talk back to you or give you messages back. And meditation teaches you to be in the now. So when they do answer you random times of the day, you'll see it. A lot of people think that meditation is when you sit in the power and you have all these amazing experiences. And honestly, I meditate at least daily, and only maybe a handful of times did I have extremely awesome experiences during the meditation. Mostly the meditation teaches you to be silent and still and be in the now. So then when you go throughout your day and things do happen, you're able to recognize them because you have learned to sit in the power. Now, when I talk about sit in the power, it's a term that mediums use when they're connected. So when we raise our frequency and we connect to the spirit, that's sitting in the power. That's when spirit knows, okay, I'm ready. I'm in the now. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to do these readings. And so it's just, you have to practice it, and it's hard to explain. You don't feel, it's not like that's not true. I guess I was going to say you don't feel any different, but you do. I do feel different. And people say they can tell a difference from right before I do the reading to when I say the prayer protection and I'm inside the reading. Like my voice changes and my demeanor just changes a little bit. I become more serious. And I will admit too, right before the readings, I am a little bit more anxious because I want to make sure that, one, I'm being available for the spirit that comes through. And because honestly, at the end of the day, I'm really there for the spirits. The spirits find me, and then they find you to find me. And so spirits are leading my clients to me. And so I know that I used to just think I was there for the clients. But then my practice was more people-pleasing based because I wanted the clients to love it. I wanted, them to have a good experience. And I was so anxious about them being approved, but, being approved by them. But now I've stepped back and I realized that my business is mostly for the spirits that come through because they find my clients and they bring me to my clients, and they somehow my clients will find me through spirits that their guides or that will lead them to me. So I have just changed my thought process, which has really changed my readings, that I mostly work for the spirits. And the clients are a bonus, but I mostly work for the spirits. So that's why a lot of times I will not DM people. So if you ever get a DM from me asking if you want a reading, that is not me. I will not seek people. I will not market for readings. I'll market for classes, but I won't market for readings because I fully know that Spirit's going to lead you to me if you're supposed to be getting a reading from me. So I'm not too worried about that part. But off on a tangent, that's where you really know. When I'm sitting in the power and doing a reading, I know completely. Now, is it perfect? No reading is 100% accurate. No reading is 100% perfect because I can interpret wrong. A spirit can show me signs and symbols and I can interpret it wrong. And I can get anxious, especially if somebody very skeptic is. Now, skepticism is different. Like skepticism, some skeptics are like, okay, is this really real? But then there are people out there that try and prove you wrong. Now, when there's people around that try and prove me wrong, I will admit I do get anxious because I don't really have to prove anything to them. This is between me and my clients and Spirit. And so, but right before the readings, I will get a little anxious. But once I sit in the power, it's gone. It's completely gone. So, but I was trying to say, because I do get off on tangents, and thank you so much for following along with me. Even in the readings, I'll see something like the dinosaur, and I'll be nervous to say it because I'll be like, is that really accurate? Like I've seen things like goats. I saw a goat in a reading, and I get nervous because I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to understand what this means? And I just have to remember that even if they don't know at the time, they will eventually see it in the future then. Does that make sense? Like Spirit brings something through to me. I better say it because it's either going to be, if they don't know what it is at the moment, they will in the future. And so that's where I had to kind of get rid of my anxiety during readings and just say what I see, because I have to say what I see because I know that's what the Spirit wants me to do. And eventually, sometime in the future, it will come to fruition. So I guess the main thing is there any really easy way to tell the difference between anxiety and intuition, or imagination and intuition? And I guess what you need to do is I need to ask yourself. And some of these questions are hard to answer. So if you are feeling, okay, I need to do this, or I need to do this, or this feels right, ask yourself, is there emotion? Did I just get this information with a bunch of emotion? And even that's really hard because even when I went and bought the tape recorder, the whole time I went and bought the tape recorder, in the moment I heard, go buy a tape recorder and put it to your bed, there was no fear. But when I was on my way to Walmart and I was buying a tape recorder and I was sticking it under the bed, I was so full of fear. But so I guess that's why there's no easy answer for this. You don't just wake up one morning and you can be like, okay, this is anxiety and this is intuition. This is something you've got to practice. And so how you practice it, honestly, the best way to practice this is the automatic writing, and know what your anxieties are and what you're most anxious about. And this will come out probably in the automatic writing. And you will be able to feel like, okay, I do have anxiety around this. So when I get intuition or things about this, I need to, and I guess this is when people start asking for signs, and then they get the signs and they're like, okay, I want a sign of your sign, because this is the hardest thing about this whole spiritual realm, the whole thing, the whole spiritual awakening, all the things. This is the toughest is, okay, is this my anxiety, or is this my real intuition? And honestly, I wish there was an easy, this is how you do it, 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. It's taken me, I'm 50. It's taken me a long time to master, and I still haven't mastered it. I still, it's an ongoing process. It's a learning process. And I think that that's why automatic writing is huge. And I think that that's why self-healing is huge, because when you do self-healing and you do start the journey of self-healing, there's less anxiety, there's less anxiousness, there's more healthiness, there's more understanding your emotions. And so it's easier to discern. It's easier to discern your imagination and your anxiety compared to your intuition. And I think that that's why self-healing is so important. And that's why it's so popular right now, is because your spiritual awakening really is your self-healing journey. That's all it is. And once you start to awaken and realize that there is more to us than just this life, and you know it, you just know it, that's your intuition telling you there's something bigger out there, then you want to learn how to conquer that, or you want to learn about that. And part of learning about that is going inside and learning about yourself. And so that's when it gets easier, is when you start to self-heal and you're on this self-heal journey and you kind of start to lose or control your anxiety a little bit better. And you can start to acknowledge, okay, this is anxiety and this is intuition. You can start to feel the difference between the both. Or this is my imagination and this is my intuition. Now, when you first start, you will hear things or you will have ideas and you'll think they're yours because that's all you know, right? That's all you know. So when you get answers to prayers or when you get things, you'll hear them in your voice or you'll think that they're your thoughts. But the more you start to self-heal and the more you start to go through this and the more you start to figure out what's yours and what's not, when those thoughts come, you'll know, okay, this is guidance. This isn't me. You'll start to be able to discern. But that takes, that takes the automatic writing, the healing. You're not going to be able to listen to this podcast and do it tomorrow. It's going to take some time. Now, when you're having gut feelings, and I have to admit, there's just sometimes you just know. And so, and maybe that's just maybe some people don't. Maybe that's just my experience, just because of my gift that I've been so tuned into it since I was little that I just know when people are lying. I just know when things aren't right. And so, maybe everybody doesn't have that. And so I take that for granted because I think that they do. And so when I tell people, you just know, it's hard for me because I have to remember not everybody just knows things. So that's just kind of practicing. Now, I don't want you to step into people's energy and try and read them, but you can practice auras. You can from afar or look at people and see, okay, what color comes to mind? What color do I think I see? Just when people see auras, it's not always actually seeing the color again. It's just knowing what color it is. Or the only time I've ever actually seen real color is during Tibetan bowls, when Tibetan bowls ring. When somebody plays the Tibetan bowl sound, not as much crystal bowls, but when Tibetan bowls are played, I can actually see the color. Now, when I look at people's auras, and I have to tell you too, to see that color, I have to have my eyes closed. My eyes can't be open and I see the color. The color comes in a great big, huge blob when my eyes are closed. Now, to see people's auras doesn't always mean you look at people and you see this great big orange glow around them. Some people can. But most people just know, okay, that's orange, or there's a tint, or there's a light that they see, and just know that that's super normal. I think that, Hollywood and the misconception of people thinking that, mediums do readings and the spirits are standing right there in front of them, like the sixth sense and things like that. It's not accurate. It's really not accurate. Does it happen sometimes? Yes. I've seen spirits. And a few times I've seen some scary spirits or lower frequency spirits or spirits that have ill intent or want me to be scared. But majority, it's all been beautiful and, awesome. And I will tell you this too. I've never, ever, ever once. There's a couple things in my readings that I don't ever want anybody to have a misconception about. Never in my reading have I ever experienced a scary lower frequency ever. Ever, ever, ever. Those are sacred. Readings are sacred. They're protected. If you have good intentions, it's all about intentions, right? So if I went into the readings with really bad intentions and trying to harm somebody, maybe that would be a different story. But I always, say a prayer, have an altar, and do a self-protection prayer and I protect all my clients every day too. And I've never had a bad experience or a lower frequency come in a reading. The only one time that somebody asked to talk to somebody in particular, my guide did say, no, we will communicate for him. And so that's the only time. And that wasn't even a bad thing then. It wasn't even like they were going to harm me or anything like that. There's no harm in the readings. And as far as earthbound spirits, I was taught in some of my training that earthbound spirits are harder to communicate to, but since I've been doing readings, I've been finding that they're not. So it's kind of hard when, you've been trained a certain way too. That's why I like to be really careful about what I tell you, because when you've been trained a certain way and you believe a certain way, then when you start your practice, you bring those beliefs in with you. And then you realize when you kind of have a lot of experience that some of those beliefs aren't always true. Kind of like religion, huh? Like you start something and you've been told something, and then you start to live it and you think, okay, wait, that's not true for me. That's not my truth. Just because that's true for somebody else doesn't mean it's true for me. And so that's why, trying to decipher between your imagination and anxiety and intuition is kind of your own journey. No one can tell you 1, 2, 3, this is how you do it. But people can say, these are some great steps because these are what worked for me. And so that's what I'm trying to do. These are some great steps and this is what worked for me. Now, I kind of knew, the difference between my intuition and my anxiety when I was little. I knew the difference way before when I was little, because that's what that was part of my life back then. Now, when I started drinking, I tried to numb it. I drank a lot in high school and numbed it. And then when I came back into my gift and sitting in the power, I did have to practice a little bit more. I did have to practice, especially with readings. I had to decipher, okay, is this mine or is this really spirit? And it just was lots of practicing readings, lots of automatic writing, lots of meditation, and lots of self-healing. And so that's my advice for you. And in the moment when you're having intuition, or you think you're having intuition, or you're like, okay, is this really intuition or is this anxiety? I want you to ask yourself how it came to you. Did it come to you? Did the thought come to you with no emotion? Did the thought just drop in the shower? Did the thought just drop in while you were doing the dishes, while you were doing something in a meditative state? Or were you like dwelling on something? Were you thinking about something and telling yourself a story, and then this idea or this thing dropped into that story? So that's kind of how I want you to practice. Lots of self-awareness here, because when you do start to look at your imagination and your intuition, you need to start, examining yourself. And I think that that's why it's so hard, because people don't want to start to examine their feelings and their emotions, and to figure this out, you have to. And so begins the awakening and the self-healing journey. So I hope that helps. It is one of the hardest things to do in the spiritual realm. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of hard things to do, but this is one of them. And it's discerning between your emotions, what's your intuition, and what's your imagination and anxiety. So practice this week. Let me know how it goes. DM me, tell me how it's working. I think this is fascinating. And I will admit, I take for granted how easily it has kind of become for me, but you have to realize it's because I do it every day, every single day for 3 hours. I am sitting in the power. Not every single day. I don't work on Fridays and weekends, but every single day that I do readings, I'm sitting for 3 hours in the power and deciphering and practicing. And that's what it takes. And I think that that's why mediums are good at it, or get better at it, because they practice when they do these readings. They're doing it all the time. And so give yourself some grace and just start practicing and automatic writing, and write an awesome story. Write a story about a castle and a dragon and a princess, and use your imagination, and it'll start to feel really cool. So I hope that helps. I hope that is what you needed. I know it's not a distinct, this is how it works kind of thing, but that's not how this is. It's not like math. It's not like 3 + 3 is 6. It's like there's a 4 + 2, and there's a 3 + 3, and there's a 5 + 1. There's all different ways that you can do this, and everybody's different. And so you need to tap in to find your way on how it works. And all I can tell you is, no matter how it does work for you, practice is the key. So, okay, guys, I love you so much. And I hope this helps you. That's the main thing. Take what works for you and use it to your advantage, and hope that it works for you, right? Okay, I'll talk to you guys next week.